Hello and welcome to the Hill and Valley. This is Nick Roby once again. Thanks so much for joining us. Super fun show to talk about today. I know we've been off for a couple weeks, but excited to get back with y'all. So we're going to highlight the game that just happened with Clemson and Notre Dame. Notre Dame was number 15 in the country, coming in at 7-2 on the year, and Clemson was kind of stumbling in, coming in at 4-4. So Notre Dame was favored by 3 points in this matchup, and I think a lot of people were expecting that Notre Dame to take care of business. And even though Death Valley is a hard place to play, I think a lot of people were still picking Notre Dame. I did see that on one sports book that this was the most bet game of the week, and a lot of people were picking Notre Dame -3. So there was a lot of supposedly money riding on this game too. And I'm sure if, as a Clemson fan, you've seen this, but of course, you kind of have to mention like the radio show from Tiger Calls, where Tyler from Spartanburg calls in and Dabo defends himself, and that's been national, talk in college football world all week. So we don't have to really get into that, but I think just there's a lot going into this game. You had injuries, a lot of frustration with Clemson, a lot of just all hands on deck kind of a feel, and just very interested to see like what this game would look like coming into this for sure. And just you don't know a whole lot of what you're going to get. And the thing with Clemson coming in, and it's been this part for this whole season, is just taking care of the ball because they can move the ball. It's just scoring in the red zone and not turning the ball over. I mean, you can't lead the nation in fumbles, And so, of course, a lot of coaches are going to say like you're one play away or a couple plays away, but you change those fumbles and it changes a lot of the course of stuff. And of course, in football, I mean, you can say that a lot, but really for Clemson, I mean, if they can get over the turnover margin, it really makes a big difference. And so many games are won and lost. And that's why Coach Swinney really emphasizes that, is that so many games are won and lost with turnover margin. And so coming into this, and knowing how Notre Dame likes to play, they have to hold the ball, run the ball. Estimate was going to get a lot of run, with Hartman at quarterback. And so, they like to hold on to the ball, run it. And so you have to take care of the ball and score when you have opportunities. So just very interested to see how this would play out. And I thought, I mean, what a performance. I think the performance on Saturday is something that I was really hoping to see for a long time. And it just seemed like more of the Clemson that I'm used to watching a little bit for the past few years. And it started to feel like you could feel that momentum really going. And really, this is something that you can hopefully expect them to build on top of. So Clemson ends up winning 31-23 over number 15 Notre Dame. And they really were in control, I would say, most of the game. And they came out and put it all in the middle. They held Notre Dame to a field goal opening out. And of course, also the crazy part is before we get into the breakdown of all the scoring, you had so many injuries. I think that was the thing. It was like, what kind of week are we having? It's just kind of one of those weeks where like you have the radio call, you have national people talking about Dabo and all sort of stuff, like is he still in touch with stuff? And all the transfer portal, yada, yada. Like, I mean, as a fan, if you've heard that, it's just same story, different chapter kind of thing. And then you got injuries. Shipley's out. You've got, 3 defensive backs are out. You've got guys banged up. Klubnik apparently was in a boot, for a few days of the week. Tyler Brown didn't take any reps apparently during the week. All this other stuff. It got to the point where like you have a different offensive line. You got a freshman that ends up starting, different shuffling pieces around. Just kind of one of those days where you're like, man, like, I mean, it's next man up, but it's just, you just didn't know. And just they played inspired football. They played really, really well. And it just felt like more of a unit. And Phil Mafah, man, I mean, what a performance from him. I mean, what a breakout performance. He had, a career day is an understatement. The dude just played with his hair on fire. And also the offensive line was very impressive, especially for some pieces they've had to move around. Those guys played the best they've played all year. I mean, there wasn't a penalty called on them all day. Like no penalties were called. It's the first time since I think 1952. Now it wasn't a highly penalized game, but I mean, it was just very impressive especially for a unit that had some pieces moved around, And I think Tate was out with a MCL, and then forget somebody else was out with an ACL as well. Koval, the defensive back, and just very impressive. So Phil Mafah gets the 41-yard touchdown run, long of the season, and just very impressive. Just the whole open up and the way he hit the lanes. I thought he did a really good job. And he carried the ball 36 times. And I mean, he got blows, but he was the all-purpose back down there. Like, he was the guy, and he just didn't seem like it seems like that's something he has done a lot. And it just was so impressive to watch, and just the blocking and the execution. So they get that, and then they go down, and then the fumble on the punt, and then the gunner does an excellent job, or the long snapper does an excellent job. We get the fumble back, and we score a field goal, and it's like Clemson is able to go and score themselves off of a turnover, which is very impressive. And I thought really too, what was really big is that Notre Dame was able to move the ball a little bit, but is that they were holding the defense. The defense was holding the Tigers in, or holding Tiger defense was holding Notre Dame to field goals in the red zone. And that's massive, because that kind of a difference is a big point differential. I mean, at halftime, you're looking at a one possession game versus multiple possessions. And I just thought they did an excellent job, holding them to field goals. Tyler Brown just made an excellent play across the middle. He gets in the end zone. And then you're up 17-6. And then Jeremiah Trotter had just an amazing, excellent day on the defensive end. And he's really been a quiet leader of this team for sure. But the past few weeks, I think he's been more vocal, and just you could tell with his leadership, him and Barrett Carter, just been very impressive. And he was all over the place, man. I mean, he had the pick six. He read Hartman really well, cut off the out route, and then ran it back for a touchdown. And turning turnovers into points is so Clemson feels like Clemson's been down 7-0, and the whole time just from, before the game even starts. And so you go up there, and then going to the half, you're up 24-9, and you get the ball back. It just was very impressive. And, and you still have the turnover, and it's hard to blame that on Cade. I mean, it just hit Bo Collins in the hands, and I think Bo would say he should have had that, and it ends up being a pick, and they punch it in. But I thought the response was really well from this team. And even when those kind of things happen, even when an interception happens, or like things don't all the way click, I thought the response was really well. So the drive they had back and Phil Mafah scores again, I thought that really set the tone, because it's 24-16, and you could feel like, okay, is this a shift in momentum? Like, is this a shift in the half? And I thought they did really well in bouncing back and having really good drives. And Sam Hartman, maybe didn't have his best day for sure. I mean, he's very agile in the pocket, and you could tell him being like a veteran, fifth year guy, how much, even when the guy is not there, the play's not there, he's able to extend the play. And so they did let some busted coverages happen, but I thought they did a really good job limiting him, and then especially limiting Estime in the second half. Defensively, I mean, I thought the defense played a really good game against a tough defense, a tough offense to play, especially with how well Notre Dame played at home last year in South Bend, and how much they controlled the clock and controlled the line of scrimmage and all those things. I mean, and Joel a left tackle is going to be probably a first rounder, and how those guys played well. And I thought it was really cool to see some defensive tackles play out wide, and that's how Hartman was able to get some of his plays, running on the outside. But I thought those guys played really well. Xavier Thomas had a great game. I thought just getting a lot of pressure and making Hartman a little bit uncomfortable. You had Rook and Tyler Davis, and those guys played really well up the middle and did a good job on the outside. And I thought just that pressure and really made Notre Dame uncomfortable all day long. I thought was really good. The offense just looked a little bit, going back to the offense looked like a little bit more comfortable in what they were doing, especially after, you have to remember too, after all this, guys, it's after the Notre Dame game, or Notre Dame, we're playing Notre Dame, but after the NC State game. And with NC State, just you're down 24-7, and just it's not going well. You throw a pick six, just kind of hand it to them, and just all these kind of things are going wrong. And I really thought that they played a pretty good game all the way around. Offensive line got the best push they've gotten all year, and receivers are making some plays, and Sage Ennis had a big play. Stellato had a good catch. Bo Collins had a bounce back and had a few good catches. A good complimentary team for sure. I mean, Thomas played great as the third string running back coming in, getting some good blows from Mafah, and Mafah, of course, had a master game. I thought Cade looked more comfortable. I think that was the thing. He looked more comfortable in his decision making and taking what it was given to him and being in more command of the offense. And even with Shipley out, who does help with a lot of the calls, and I thought that they kind of got through that in the first half, and it stalled out a little bit more in the second half, but I really thought that the offense looked overall a little bit more comfortable, and you could see some of the different routes that Riley was wanting to get in play. So I thought the team played really well overall. I mean, it's, winning's hard. Winning is really hard. And as Clemson fans have seen the past few weeks, it can be really tough. So just wanting to pull up some stats and just wanting to talk through that a little bit as my stuff is still trying to load. But yeah, overall, I mean, I thought it was a great game. And of course, there's things you're going to want to look at and make different, but I thought great game. Mafah was 36 for 186 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, career high. He tied the Clemson record. He tied a Clemson record for rush attempts. Like, I think there was 3 guys now who have 36 carries. I mean, it's incredible what he was doing. So he had 36 for 186, 2 touchdowns. Cade, was only he was 13 to 26 for 109, and Notre Dame was trying to take that away, and Clemson just really relied. I mean, Moff was working, let's just use what's working. So he played really well, had the touchdown to Tyler Brown. Bo Collins ended up with the lead with just 37 receptions. Stellato had 27. Sage Ennis had the 18-yard reception. Verning still had a 13 yards. Tyler Brown had the touchdown. Dominique Thomas was 3 of 16 as well. So nothing crazy other than Mafah, but I mean, you didn't really have to do it. And I think that was the thing, is that it wasn't that the offense was necessarily putting all these numbers together, but is that they were capitalizing on what was given to them. And I think that's the big thing. It just became such a field position kind of a battle, even for that kind of a high score. The defense held Hartman. He was only 13 of 30 for 146 yards and 2 interceptions. Esme had a good game, 17 for 87 and a touchdown. But in the second half, they really held him down. And his touchdown was off of the interception. That way they went down to the 2-yard line and they punched right in. So it's hard to even blame on the defense. Hartman had 68 rushing yards and the touchdown. So, you'd want to see that a little bit better. But I mean, receiving wise, Flores for them had 35 yards. Esme had 33. Faison had 32. Tyree had 29. I mean, nothing crazy, especially with how pass happy offenses are now. And they're a running team for sure. But I mean, this is a good Notre Dame team. And the way that they play was just really well. So overall, very impressed. Trotter had 11 tackles, 2 sacks, 2.5 for losses, had the interception, pick 6. I mean, excellent game for him. So just a great performance. And also too, I don't want to miss out. Aiden Swanson, the punter, had an excellent day. I mean, the dude just, especially in the second half, in the fourth quarter, I mean, every time Notre Dame was starting within their 15-yard line. And so the defense could play with their hair on fire. And I mean, he just kept pinning Notre Dame deep after deep. I mean, I felt like every time, you look up and Notre Dame gets the ball back, but they're getting on the 10, the 7, the 14. I mean, that's a lot for an offense to have to go, especially when their passing game isn't working as well as they would like to. It was massive. It was massive for especially with this defense, giving a lot more confidence. And so I just thought, and then the coverage team, I thought they did really well. So very impressive overall from this Clemson unit. First downs, Notre Dame had 13, Clemson had 19. They held Notre Dame to 3 of 13 on third down, only 329 yards total. Clemson only had 285, so it wasn't like a crazy offensive game, but they did just enough, and they were in control, which I thought was the big thing. Notre Dame had 146 passing, 183 rushing. Clemson had a 109 passing, but they had 176 rushing and 4.1 a clip. Notre Dame had 5 penalties for 40 yards. And like I said, Clemson didn't have any penalties. Clemson won the turnover battle 3-2. So just an excellent overall game. And I really think, as going forward from this can be a really momentum builder because, I think a lot of people were expecting, you kind of expect Clemson to lose this one and be 4-5, and you're like hoping to make a bowl game and hoping to be 7-5. And now when you look at this, now Clemson's 5-4. And I know the team won't necessarily look at this like they're gonna be okay, we're just on Georgia Tech. But there's a lot of momentum, a lot left to play for. And a lot for this it has some older guys, but there's a lot of young pieces that are getting some valuable opportunity. And now you've got defenses that Clemson's going to play. You can run this, like you can run this offense and be successful. I think pretty successful because Georgia Tech has been known to give up points. North Carolina is going to give up points, and both those games are at home. And then you go on the road at South Carolina. But South Carolina has been struggling themselves. And so, they just won their third game, but they had to beat Jacksonville State at home. It was a tie ball game in the third quarter, as a 14-point favorite. So get their third win. So it's not like anything crazy. And that their offensive line have had some struggles. So Clemson's going to be able to rush the passer, I think at least get pressure. So that's going to be a very interesting game. And interested to see what kind of a team they're even playing with South Carolina with what's left for them. So I think there's a lot left to go. And so you could run the table. There's a lot of ifs, if and woulda, coulda, maybe, but there's a lot left for this team to play for. The 10-win winning streak, that's not going to be a thing. But however, there's a lot left to play for. 9-4 with a bowl game win, that's still, from everything this team has gone through, that's massive. And I think just the turnaround from what this type of a game can show is big time. So, but at the same time, Georgia Tech has shown that they can score some points. North Carolina has shown that they can score some points. So thankfully those games are at home for the Tigers. But as they say, it's a 1-game season. So very interested to see with how they can build from momentum of this game into the next game and seeing almost like in basketball, you're starting to see things click, seeing the ball go through the hoop. Offense is starting to move. You can see some of that clicking and Clemson's hoping that it's going to be more of a momentum shift as well, for sure. So again, I thought massive win. And of course, too, the crazy part is this is Dabo Swinney's 166th win. He now goes ahead of Frank Howard for the all-time winningest coach in Clemson football history. So they've been sitting on that for a little bit, but they get the job done. And I know no one, this team is so happy to do it for him. And I know that's a tough, hard week, a lot of self-reflection from the team and trying to figure out what's going to happen. And so a great performance and energy from the team this week. And I thought the crowd was great, especially for a noon game with Notre Dame coming. There's a lot of Notre Dame fans, but I thought they did that really well. And Georgia Tech next week will be again ABC noon. So yeah, another noon kickoff, but they'll be wearing the all purple. They'll be ready to go, fired up. So we'll see. Be very interested to see that from there. So we'll break down that game later this week, but I wanted to get some time for us to talk about Notre Dame, celebrate the win, or get to talk about the Clemson celebrating the win. They were dancing for forever, but which, well earned. And so Clemson's 5-4, looking to play Georgia Tech next week on Saturday at home, who's also 5-4. They'll be wearing the all purple, like we said. So keep your eyes out for that. We'll break down that game later. And if you're listening too, and now we got also the start of basketball season. So that's exciting. We've got both the women and men basketball team. They play Winthrop on Monday. The women play 11:30 in Little John, and then the men play at 7. At 7. Yeah, they play at 7 against Winthrop. So a good start for the season for them with a good opening test, like Winthrop's got a good historic program. So it's a good to see them, another South Carolina program, but good to see them and interested to see how these pieces are coming together, especially for the men with Joe Girard, and wanting to see, loss of Hunter Tyson and kind of see how all those kind of pieces shape up together. They had a good scrimmage against Newberry. and excited to see the women play too with Amanda Butler and this team and Team 49. I think this will be they're going to be both fun teams to watch. So don't sleep on them. If you're one of those fans who waits until maybe January or until ACC play to get into the basketball, I wouldn't do that if I were you. I would really pay attention. I think they're both be fun teams to keep your eye on. So that's going on this week. They both start their seasons. You got Georgia Tech this weekend and other games coming up. So that's it for now. I really appreciate y'all listening. Remember to like and subscribe to the podcast. Leave a review if you can. We're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, you name it. We should be on it. And if we're not, let me know. I'd love to make sure we're on there. So once again, this is Nick Roby. Thank you so much for listening. And for now, we're signing off.